Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very informative and educational, but yet still terrifying upload to share with you. Before we get into this, let's get a couple links down. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version. They were written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those books are in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Now, I stumbled upon this in Reddit and found it absolutely amazing. And it kind of just, lights the candle to what we say is you either become a recluse or you go 100% towards it. Also, this is kind of in my neck of the woods. I'd say about 80 to 100 miles from my house, which is not very far in the grand scheme of things, to be honest. It's just on the border of Vermont and Canada where it happened. So, and I'm a spit away from Vermont, so let's get into it. My first Dogman encounter, I was camping with Cadet de la Marine Royale, Lake Memphremagog, in Quebec, Canada. I don't remember exactly where the city was 13 years ago when I was 11 or 12 years old. I went camping in a tent alone because there were too many people in the tent. Here I was sleeping in an army-like tent alone with the roof not even connected to the floor, which created an open space to the outside. It was a summer morning, around 6 a.m., when I felt a terrible cold through my sleeping bag for a few minutes before opening my eyes. And what I saw was, first things first, I realized that I was outside, bringing daylight, and in front of me was standing a huge black thing, 6 to 7 feet away from me. I don't remember if it was standing on 2 or 4 legs. This encounter lasted less than 5 seconds because I thought I was dreaming. I closed my eyes, completely ignoring the red flag, and fell back to sleep, to waking up a few hours later at the same spot. But the black thing was gone. Now, to be sure I wasn't dreaming, I finally woke up and looked around to see that I had been dragged out of my tent a few feet away. I crawled back into the tent and fell back to sleep for the last time. I asked the person that was in the same tent that acted as the watcher because of my bad attitude as me if he noticed that I was gone. He replied that he pushed me to the side of the tent, but nothing else. It confirmed to me that these things might exist for real, and that I had been dragged out of the tent for some reason. I don't have any sleeping problems either. This was my first experience. Up to you to believe me or not. Strangely, I didn't notice any kind of cuts or slashes on my body. This is my second encounter. August 2017, Mount Royal Park, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. After doing a shitload of research after my first encounter 8 years ago, prior to the first encounter, I went to a slope in the park of Mount Royal in Montreal, watching the sundown while drinking half a bottle without pause down a 1-liter bottle of 15% wine. I was sure there was a Dogman in this park, so, like a drunken idiot, I started howling, waiting for a response, but nothing. I stayed for a few hours on the slope, waiting for the night. I left by taking another trail from the one I had came from, arriving, resulting in me getting lost in a frickin' cemetery in the middle of night. I kept walking in complete darkness for at least a half an hour. I was now able to see a few meters in front of me, allowing me to walk on the road. I panicked, cried because I was drunk, and started running after seeing many tombstones everywhere. I just wanted to get out of there. 15 minutes later, I was finally out of that hellhole, the cemetery, just to be welcomed into a park by two red glowing eyes. It might have been cars. I fixed these eyes for a good 20 seconds. Before hearing "hey," I panicked. I took a sprint, still looking at these two glowing red eyes, going twice as fast as me. I didn't think it was a car, because the way these lights were moving was not car-like at all. They finally disappeared into the darkness, very far away from me. Taking my breath while making sure no one was there, I start howling again. I waited again, and there was a response. I made the worst decision to ignore that howl and took a quick dip in the artificial lake, losing my shoes, socks, and keys, leaving me without anything to cover my feet. Don't ask me how I managed to walk without them. I blacked out. When I'm drunk, I'm not myself, to say the least. I knew that because I retraced every step I did on Google Map and came to this conclusion. I knew where I started and tried to remember everything. Moving on to his first Dogman investigation. I went on my first Dogman investigation hotspot located in Centre Ecologique Ferdinand Squen between the 19th and 20th of March 2021 between 9 and 10 p.m. The reason of my investigation was because of the numerous reports about Dogman sightings in the area back in 2005 to 2008, after what witnesses have said. I investigated this area because it was very close to where I live and to seek answers of what I personally experienced on that fateful day. I had also no source of light at all other than my cell phone. I also apologize in advance for my English not being my first language. I entered the forest in around 7 to 10 p.m. The sun was already down this night. There was still ice and snow on the ground that reflected the light from the sky and the dark trees without any leaves at all, which allowed me to see the snow around it perfectly. As I walked very slowly and mindful of my footstep for about 10 minutes, I heard footsteps other than mine, like it was running behind me, so I stopped completely. The other footstep continued for a half a second before the total silence. I saw nothing out of the ordinary as I turned around to observe my surroundings, and waiting in hope of seeing something moving behind the trees. I stood in place for 3 minutes before continuing on with my investigation. In the meantime, while walking cautiously, I heard a very soft whispering like people do when they want you to be quiet. Shh! After hearing this, I automatically stop and look around very quickly, expecting to hear footsteps as well, but I was welcomed by the silence of the night. Thinking that it must have been a bird, I shivered due to the cold and resumed my plans after walking for another 10 minutes on the snowy trail. This is where I hear a very huge crack coming from behind me, as if somebody broke a log or jumped on a tree. It was 21:20 or 9:20 p.m. I did not dare to approach the origin of the noise as I was unarmed and without a light source. The origin of the noise. That noise came back after 2 minutes of me still walking. As I turned around to see what was doing all of the ruckus, this is when I saw it. One bright red flashing in the distance, and about hard to tell since it was far, maybe 9 to 10 feet tall, onto the trees and approximately 150 meters away from me. The diameter of the red light, if I had to put my index in front of it, would be the size of my nail. I stared at the light for about 5 to 10 minutes, moving around just to be sure that I was not looking at some street light. No matter how I moved, it would stand immobile. I forgot to take a picture, and I deeply regret it. Maybe it was the cold outside that discouraged me to take any photos. I lost interest with the light and continued my journey. At the end of the trail I was using, there was an intersection of the trail, many leading back to the starting point, except one that was leading directly to a golf course. Not satisfied with my investigation, I decided to follow the trail that ended in the woods, thus ending this trail leading to the forest without a trail. I took my courage by the balls and entered the forest, ignoring the red flag of the forest being perfectly quiet, which may have been a sign of Dogman presence in the area. After wandering aimlessly in the pitch-black forest, I stumbled upon a deer track in the snow. Started following them for a while until I came across these big, very big, clawed footprints. The footprint was so big I could stick my entire foot, followed by these 3 or 4 centimeter imprinted claws in the snow that couldn't fit a human foot. The paw prints, not the claws, was digging at 1 dm as if he tried to hide his trace. Again, I didn't take a picture because of the cold. I was starting to freeze at that point, that I was losing flexibility in my numb fingers. After looking at these prints for a while, I heard another crack from the top of a tree, dangerously close to me. I decided to investigate these cracking sounds one last time before leaving for the night. After what I thought was the tree in question that was making the noises, as I look up into the tree, I was not able to see past the first branch, even with my cell phone flashlight activated. By trying to see past those branches, I heard a crackling sound coming from up the tree exactly where I couldn't see. If I have to explain the sound, it was like the sound of a floating wooden boat that you see in the movies, but far more sinister since it was dead quiet outside. After a while around the tree, trying to figure out the sources of sound, I started to feel very uncomfortable, as if I was being watched, unwelcomed. My patience was also running thin because of the biting cold that kept on torturing my poor fingers, and my whole body as well started to get cold, just like that fateful day. I now hurry back, trying to get out of the forest by any means possible, feeling more and more uncomfortable. I stumble across a winter racket trail that I followed slowly for what looked like an eternity to me, ignoring everything except leaving. At around 200 meters before reaching the road, I had the last experience that gave me so much adrenaline and could have been my end. The first thing that made me stop and turn very slowly was the loud crack just on the tree I was right next to. I stood there frozen in fear, and the adrenaline giving me a useless boost. I heard the same soft whisper than before. I let out a scared "huh?" because I didn't expect to hear it. This is right after that. I heard the most scariest thing of my life, a very annoyed growl that lasted for 5 seconds at least, and a few meters away from me. I couldn't identify from where it came from, and this was the last thing on my mind right now. After a few seconds of standing still, I hurried back to the road, almost falling non-stop because of these damn holes or branches. I let out a sigh of relief after quitting it and reaching the road. I came back a month later to that forest. I will share that later. Now, I'm not sharing this because of any other reason other than to show you the result in having these encounters like me, when I had my encounter, my immediate thing a couple days after was to go to it's kind of a local magic store / used bookstore. They sell old Masonic stuff, just an old variety of old books, paranormal section, and I found my first cryptid book. And ever since, I've been hooked, reading anything I can on the paranormal and other weird, strange things like alchemy and other stuff like that. So you can see the progression this person had. He had one encounter. Then he goes out on a drunken excursion, very stupidly, but still did it. And then he decides to go on a full-out investigation. I'm really not... I don't think the way they went about going on their investigation was intelligent at all. I know in Canada you're not allowed to own firearms, but I'm pretty sure bear spray is readily available, and get a flashlight, you know? I mean, you're going out empty-handed, and that's what's gonna possibly cause this person to be another media government cover-up statistic. Yeah, I mean, definitely go with some bear spray and a really good mag light and a hatchet and a knife. I mean, and I'm not talking a pocket knife, I'm talking full tang, you know, eye-pack knife. 9-inch blade, something you can thrust if it's got you. Mag light, you can whack the hell out of its snout on the nose. But you just can't go empty-handed, and you can't go without a flashlight. That's kind of amusing to me. But not everybody thinks like us or myself. You know, I'm sure a lot of you guys have cryptid research backpacks all set, you know, ready to go. So, I don't know. But, yeah, that's why I wanted to share this with you guys. So, I hope you enjoyed the upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Everyone stay safe out there, and see ya!